All right, y'all, got some breaking news here for you. So the DNC has now officially released the autopsy of the 2024 race, and it gets into why they think they lost. Now, Ken Martin is the head of the DNC. He had basically been going around in interviews and gaslighting us as to why he's refusing to release the autopsy. Well, now that it is released, allow me to say, I kind of understand why he didn't want to release it. Hey, bro, this thing's a mess, man. This thing is an absolute mess. So let me walk you through it. But right off the jump here, let me just say, 100% this was made with AI. Without a doubt, this was made with AI. It is an absolute joke. It is pathetic how off-base this is. All right, so right off the jump here, let me just say, some of the reasons that they give for why Kamala lost, they say Trump's they-them attack ads on Kamala were seen as highly effective. That's where Trump was saying, she only cares about trans people, whereas I care about you, the regular folks. To me, I think that's kind of stupid and dumb because Kamala wasn't talking about trans people. She never mentioned trans people. So to try to tar her with that, it rings very hollow, in my opinion. We also have the Biden team was criticized for failing to prepare Kamala properly. They say that the Democrats were neglecting rural voters. And they also say that Democrats relied too much on saying we're not Trump. Hey, we're not this guy. We're anything but this guy. Okay, so that's some of the conclusions. We also have Kamala Harris on the ballot helped down-ballot Democrats more than Biden would have if he was on the ballot. In the report, they urge a shift away from identity politics and toward middle-class and kitchen-table issues like the economy and affordability. They also say that Republicans were more effective at messaging and data use, and they learned messages from the past better, including from Obama's campaign. Now, having said all that, you ready for this? So, mentions of Gaza, Palestine, or Israel in the 192-page report. Zero. None. Not at all. It didn't bring it up at all. Okay? That is astonishing, especially given that we now have some data that has come out that shows it was a very big reason why Kamala wasn't able to juice the turnout among the base as much as she needed it. Okay? We already have polling data that indicates this was a huge, huge issue. Okay, more. In addition to flat-out factual inaccuracies that are in the report, and I'm going to give you some of those in just a little bit. But in addition to that, the report also doesn't discuss inflation, perceptions of Biden's age, and immigration. That's all left completely out of the report. Amazing. All right, now how do we know that this was written by AI? Well, let me give you this. Here's some of the errors it contains. To Ken Martin's point about this document not being ready for prime time, which is something he said, it contains lots of errors and curious inclusions, even some that are puzzling to have in a draft. For instance, it lists two separate vote percentages for North Carolina for the Republican gubernatorial candidate Mark Robinson. It says at one point he won 45% of the vote. At another point, it says he won 42.7% of the vote. Neither of those are correct. He won 40.1% of the vote. Okay? In one point, it lifts up the Washington governor, Bob Ferguson, as an example of a candidate who did the right things, before later noting that he actually underperformed Kamala Harris. So their example of like the ideal is somebody who performed worse than Kamala did. It also misspells the names of politicians, like the Republican former Kentucky governor, Matt Bevin. They put Brevin instead of Bevin. And the Democratic former New Jersey governor, John Corzine, it's spelled John incorrectly. This is amateur hour. This is amateur hour here. One of the things from the report that was like a big takeaway is that, hey...
Actually, dying, I had the crux of this report is the fucking North Carolina governor's race. Like, fuck, of course, dude. Democrats should just run against a black Nazi obsessed with racist porn in every race. Why didn't they think of that before? This type of analysis would get you laughed off. Even the stupidest parts of election Twitter, they unironically would have been 1,000 times better off hiring an autistic 16-year-old with a PFP of laser eyes of Brad Lander than doing what they did here. No, those guys also don't have good ideas, and I'm not going to give them any credit either, okay? I guess the Democratic Party never ceases to amaze me with like how bad they are, like how just openly incompetent they are, you know? That's just what it is. Beyond any sort of like ideological tendency, beyond any sort of association, beyond any sort of like higher priority placed upon defending corporations and whatnot or defending Israel, like they are just unbelievably bad at their jobs at its root, right? The most basic assessment of the DNC is that they are dog shit at their jobs. And because their jobs are protected by corporate interests, by their defensive corporate interests, ultimately, as long as they keep that shit up, as long as they fight these enemies of corporate interests within their ranks, as long as they actively try to purge their enemies from within their ranks, and they spend most of their time and effort and energy on ensuring that there is no insurgent left that captures any center of power within the party, that causes people to second guess their previous reasons for voting for the Democrats in general and demand more radical Democrats all around the country, seeing the success of the likes of Zoran Mamdani and numerous others. As long as that doesn't happen, everyone's happy. That's it.
Democrats need to run a race like the governor of North Carolina, the Democratic governor of North Carolina. And of course, the takeaway people are having is like, bro, he was running.
Yeah, this is one of the greatest assessments of all time. This is one of the best examples. Abigail Spanberger, CIA's very own, right? Centrist Democrat, moderate, wins the race in Virginia. All of the centrists get behind her and say, you're talking about Zoran Mamdani, who's in New York. New York is deep blue. His victory was actually irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Nothing to learn from that victory at all. Let's look at CIA's very own governor, right? In CIA's very own state, the state of Virginia. Let's look at her track record. Let's look at her approval so far. Carl Bayer did that. He looked at all the vetoes from Governor Abigail Spanberger over the last week, and they were even worse than you thought they were. Last Friday, she vetoed a bill that would have expanded and protected collective bargaining rights for state public sector workers. On Tuesday, she vetoed legislation that would have protected voters from illegitimate purges from voter rolls. Also on Tuesday, she vetoed 2 bills that would have provided an affirmative defense and strengthened protections for defendants afflicted with mental illness. Oh yeah, she also vetoed a law that would have established Virginia's first statute for allowing class action lawsuits. Also a veto on a law capping the use of private funds by election officials. And she vetoed a law that would have shielded universities from speech restrictions imposed by their boards similar to those pushed by Trump. On Wednesday, she vetoed a bill that would have outlawed ICE arrests at courthouses, polls, schools, and hospitals. That same day, she also vetoed a bill that would have legalized the sale of marijuana in Virginia. Also on Wednesday, she vetoed legislation that would have lowered prescription drug prices in the state of Virginia. If you look at her as like the North Star, as how all Democrats should be all around the nation, you just want the Democratic Party to be the gay Republican Party. That's it. You want gay Republicans, and maybe not even too gay, not in your face with all the gay shit either, right? Like that's what you want. I don't think that's what the base wants. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good politics, and I don't think that's good policy. Her fans are saying that she isn't against them. She just wants policy reworded, and she will agree because they're party apparatchiks, okay? They are the most loyal propagandists for centrist Democrats for some weird reason. I think it's unearned, but they're just party defenders. That's it. They are regime pilled.
Against a Republican who was a black Nazi who was obsessed with racist porn. He's like that guy was the worst candidate maybe in U.S. history, and that's the only reason the Democrat won is because Mark Robinson is a fucking mess. That was the Republican, Mark Robinson. So, I mean, to say that's a dumb conclusion is the understatement of the century. I mean, obviously, every Democrat can't run against somebody who's got that long of a track record of being like an atrocious candidate. Duh. So that's...
And he also literally did not pay his debts. He was so funny, dude. What a goated character he was, where he had porn debt, man. He was so crazy about his porn. He did not play about his porn, that he had debt. I've never seen someone have gooner debt like that.
Ridiculous. Also, here's a crazy fact. So the guy who Ken Martin hired to do the report, okay? Obviously, this was an AI job. It was horrible. It was terrible. It's not ready for prime time, as Ken Martin said. But he still was working for the DNC up until like today. Like he just got let go. Ken Martin announced to the staff today that the guy who wrote it, Rivera, is no longer working with the DNC. But like he was still on a project after doing this bullshit AI report that was completely fake and horrible. I mean, That is so embarrassing, man. It truly is embarrassing. And then also, I'll point this out for you guys. John Favreau said this from PodSave. He said, Step 1, promise to release the autopsy. Step 2, put incompetent friend in charge. Step 3, incompetent friend produces incoherent product. Step 4, announce you're not releasing the autopsy. Step 5, lie about why. Step 6, gaslight people who ask, saying they're the problem. Step 7, face internal revolt. Step 8, release autopsy. Oh, my word. Man, that's crazy, bro. This shit is crazy. So after all that, everybody now on the timeline is basically like, yeah, I kind of get why he didn't release it. I kind of understand now why he didn't release it.
Yeah, except for Third Way and except for all of the centrist think tanks who looked at this report and was like, well, this confirms all of our priors. So it's a banger. They got so horny. They got so excited to be like, yup, that's it. That's the one, that they released statements that they had to then delete because everyone was like, this report sucks, idiot.
But having said that, he could have just told us the truth about this from the beginning, right? He could have just said, look, the guy I hired didn't do a good job.
Did they
used
unban
AI.
sex
It's a bunch of bullshit
No,
in there. And so,
not.
like, that's why we're not going to release it. But the most important point, and this is what everybody should be stressing, is this. Why haven't you since commissioned a real expert to do a real report? Because there's a real report to be made about what happened, right? There's a real report that, for example, centers Gaza, centers Biden's failure on foreign policy, which led to a depressed base, which led to reduced turnout.
Whatever,
right?
let's continue.
There's a lot more to say about this. There's a lot to say about inflation. There's a lot to say about Biden's age. There's a lot to say about doing the switch without actually having a process and, having, an open DNC where you could have actually had something at least relatively more democratic than what we had, where they picked Kamala. There's a lot of stuff to talk about here, right? And nobody's talking about those things. So he should have commissioned a new report, and he should have commissioned an actual expert to do their job right. And then we could be having a real discussion now about what actually went down. But instead, it's too perfect. It shows the incompetence of the people who work at the DNC. It also shows that they're liars who, covered their tracks every step of the way instead of just telling the truth here. And it shows this hellscape of AI that's taking over, where work is going to get more and more dreadful, and we stray further and further from the light of God. So crazy stuff here, man. But DNC Autopsy has been officially released. It's an absolute mess. Somebody was saying it appears like it's 192 pages. It appears like there's factual errors almost on every single page. Factual errors, and it's like, come on, man. It's humiliating. This is absolutely humiliating. So do a real report and do your job properly. But in reality, like, you got to clean house at the DNC. Like, it should just be mass firings. There are a bunch of, like, corporate hacks who run that thing. We need real lefties, especially now that the Democratic Tea Party is in full effect and you got left-flank candidates who are winning all over the place. Like, bring in left-flank candidates. Faz Shakir, the person who ran Bernie's campaign.
Yes.
He should absolutely be the head of the DNC. And he ran for it, and he almost
Yes.
won. But he should be the head of the DNC because he would never be this incompetent, and he would do a much better job. Like, this is crazy. Bring in Faz Shakir, clean house, get rid of these people, and make the DNC something that actual Democrats